This lockdown in Melbourne, it's going to have some pretty severe business consequences, isn't it?
Yeah, the Treasurer said $1 billion a week, and that's really ultimately a guess number. You know, economies work with what we call a multiplier effect. So every injection of money, it doesn't just sort of end up being a one-off injection. There's a whole series of what we call extra rounds of spending. Now, when you, as a consequence of the lockdown, take that spending away, the multiplier operates in reverse. So we don't know what the implication is going to be. You know, if you say 6 weeks of lockdown, $1 billion a week, that's $6 billion. But the implications could be a lot wider. Like, for example, let's consider the fact that we're hoping that domestic air travel would get up and start operating inside maybe 4 weeks or so. Well, that's gone. So it'll be limited. Now, the amount of traffic between Sydney and Melbourne is one of the busiest routes in the entire world, and so we're going to miss out on that growth potential for the economy. It's Pete, I hate to put it crudely, but this is going to become one of the most expensive bonks of all time. You know, when you think about the implication of the lack of protocols in the hotels in Victoria and what it's going to do for the economy.
Yeah, well, in that respect, do you think it was a bit rich of the Premier to have a crack at the Victorian public then, when it was, you know, the security firm that was employed instead of the ADF to carry out these checks at quarantine hotels? Yeah,
exactly right. Look, the leaders heading up the fight against the coronavirus are in a position of either really winning or losing. And Premier Andrews was very careful in the beginning. And in many ways, his restrictions made him look like a real beacon of care and safety and security. But this is a screw up. And, you know, someone like Scott Morrison, who came to the virus with all the bushfire problems, has now covered himself in glory, as have other premiers. But Daniel Andrews really is, deep in it after making some big mistakes.
Yeah, and it's not just that. It's also, the march, even though there wasn't found to be much person-to-person contact there in terms of spreading the disease, I think from a mental mindset, it and other things as well, the easing of restrictions caused people to relax, thinking the worst was over. And look what's happened now, which stands to reason that it could well happen somewhere else. You did mention those flights, though. That's a good point. Qantas and Virgin now pulling back those flights from Sydney to Melbourne. As you say, it's one of the busiest routes in the world. When it comes to JobKeeper, and the Treasurer wasn't really giving me any specifics on how this changes the game, but you'd have to think that those payments will have to continue into next year when it comes to the aviation sector and possibly a few others as well. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, Pete. I think the implication of this is where we first said that JobKeeper would probably be targeted to various sectors and industries that are really in trouble. I think it's going to become even regional, where you wouldn't worry about, say, suburban cafes in New South Wales, Queensland, where they're doing really well. The flip side could be suburban cafes in Victoria or restaurants could be really seriously affected because of this major mistake. And I think at the end of the day, our greatest fear, and I think this is what this conversation is really about, is did Premier Andrews play politics when he should have been playing economics and playing a social game? And that's what I think all the premiers and the Prime Minister have been doing from the outset. But to knock back the offer of 1,000 ADF forces to help out, that seemed political, and it's come back to bite him. And a lot of Australians are really cynical about politicians.
Why would that be political?
Because at the end of the day, he would be accepting help from a Liberal Prime Minister.
Right.
And I think that's look. It could be wrong, but a lot of people are suspecting that was the rationale behind it. Why would he not accept Australian Defence Force assistance for something as critically important as this?
It's there. It's there.
Yeah.
Why not use it? Yeah,
that's right. And of course, we learnt from the Ruby Princess thing, that debacle, that you really just cannot make silly gambles or take silly gambles on something so serious as this.